Hi, everyone, and welcome to this very, very special edition of IATEFL Live, our IATEFL Live Pride Show. So today we are celebrating diversity, inclusion, and of course, the power of being ourselves. So what does that mean? That means that in this show, we will be welcoming very beautiful voices who are quite bold, brilliant, and very beautiful to chat as well. Our guests today are not just part of the ELT community, so they are part of the conversation and the change-making process as well. So we have got advocates, we have got storytellers, and of course, we're going to dive into inclusive education. So hopefully you will feel inspired. And as I always say, grab your tea, water, or coffee if you want, and then let's get started. Now, of course, before we start, I would like to invite to the stage Anka and Nikki. So our moderators, hello, ladies.
Hello. Hi. How is everyone?
We're good. How are you, girls?
Good. I'm well. I'm excited for the show today. It should be very interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm very, very happy that we have got voices from diverse backgrounds as well. So it's going to be a very interesting conversation too. So Anka, I have a question for you and Nikki too. So how do you usually celebrate Pride in your settings?
In the Netherlands, we have this thing called Purple Friday, and there's one Friday chosen nationally where everybody says wear purple, and there's packages that schools can order with like purple bracelets and decorative materials to get attention for inclusion and say like just show support. But I think also it's telling that last year, for the first year, we had schools that said it's not about pride anymore. It's about inclusivity, because otherwise other people might object to this. And we had fights, and there had been schools where actually students that wore purple were getting attacked. They said, let's just make Purple Friday about everybody, which is good. But the reason, because I think says a lot about why we still need it and why we need Pride Month.
Absolutely. Yes. And Nikki, what about you?
We don't have, as far as I know, we don't have Purple Friday, but there are kind of various celebrations that are going around the city. And I think in terms of schools, they're more about celebrating diversity and inclusion rather than one particular thing. So, yeah, quite similar to the Netherlands in terms of celebrating inclusion, but without the purple. But maybe we could bring that in.
It's a very good idea. I think that little things raise awareness, and we don't really have to go bold and wild, especially if we are in communities where pride or inclusive materials, inclusive practices are not really discussed quite openly. So we can just do little things. For example, have lessons in class or create mini study clubs where everyone is welcome and they focus on pride or inclusive practices as well. So it is, I think, one of the very important reasons why we can do little things. And this is what we will be discussing in this show as well. So we also have Tyson, who is saying you can take LGBTQ out of the center of pride, which is very, very important as well. And thank you very much, Tyson, and welcome. So girls, are we ready for the show?
We absolutely are. But Georgia, what do you do in Greece? How do you celebrate Pride?
Well, that's quite interesting, because I see the difference between the UK and Greece, because I come from Greece, but I live in the UK. So in the UK, we are quite open about our LGBTQI plus community. And it's really interesting to see how people unite and they participate in lessons, social program activities as well. So we are more comfortable creating and adding pride in our curriculum as well. Whereas in Greece, it's only starting now to be part of the conversation in education and in our community as well. So I think that this is quite interesting, and this quite represents how our ELT community as works as well, because we have people in our audience from countries where pride is part of the education, but also members of our ELT community where pride or inclusive practices are not really discussed. And we're here to talk to anyone. Is that the case? Excellent. So let's start. Nikki, you're welcoming your first guest. Anka, we will see you later.
Yes.
Excellent. And Nikki, I'm going to add our guest, who is Nan.
Bring them in. Absolutely.
There we go. So come, welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me. Happy Pride, everyone.
Oh, happy Pride to you too.
I'm going to see
Sorry,
you in
Georgia?
a bit, and then I'm going to let you.
We'll see.
Yes.
We'll see you shortly, Georgia. Thank you. Cam, welcome to the show. It's lovely to have you with us. How are you today?
Yeah, all good. Slightly melting here in London. We're having a mini heat wave, so
Yeah, I know. Oh, but we're never satisfied. 1 minute it's too hot, the next it's too cold. You just can't win. It's a nightmare. Oh, Cam, just for anybody who hasn't met you yet, can you introduce yourself to us and tell us, how did you get into the world that you're living in at the moment, like working for Pride in Education? That would be a very interesting listen.
Definitely. So just a very quick whistle-stop tour. So my name's Cameron. So Cam, my pronouns are he, him. A quick visual description for people who need it. I'm a brown 30-something man with short bleached hair, and I've got clear lens glasses, and I'm wearing a multicolored knitted vest. I am a transformation and change management professional for over a decade. I work in lots of different sectors, not-for-profit, local, central government, higher education, but I've really got a passion for education, whether that's been in the corporate or in the education sector. Really want to give back, share knowledge, educate, especially around inclusion and belonging. So just a few things I'm part of. I'm a UN Women UK delegate for the last 2 years, co-founder of the embassy model, which I want to touch on ever so slightly through some of the questions. And obviously, I'm so proud to be part of Pride in Education, founded by Laila El Metwi in 2020. I joined a year later, and I'm one of the volunteer directors. And it does really kind of, reason why I'm where I am, it speaks to my passion in education, but also my experience. I was a student during Section 28 in the UK. So for those that might not know about Section 28, it brought in a lot of censorship or perceived censorship on the promotion of homosexuality in schools. So I grew up not really having the support networks in education, so very quiet and timid, and very much in this very confused state, very much kind of influenced by lots of different things and other things I want to touch on about coming from very cultural backgrounds. I'm half Chinese, half Pakistani, grew up in a Muslim and a Baha'i household, so had very different but quite conservative backgrounds that meant that I very much want to give back and want to make sure that young people, where they can thrive and be who they want to be. So yeah, that's me.
It's amazing. It's amazing what you've just said. But how did you get into this? Because if you've already been in this for about 10 years, you relatively early on had a very clear direction. How did this all start for you?
It really started as I went into in university. In the back of my head, I thought I studied French and geography. I really saw my career as becoming a teacher, a language teacher. I worked for the British Council for a year as an English language teacher in Lyon, and I loved it, but I knew that maybe being an actual teacher, which is why I have the utmost respect for teachers, wasn't necessarily the route for me, but knew that I just loved inspiring and educating and talking to people. So that was a real kind of positive thing that came out. And so when I went into the corporate world, really worked with learning and development and organization development and change management, and very much being the person that wants to take people on a journey, see that change coming through, and really see the positives out of that. So it was was really something that had been with me since I was a lot younger, but it really kind of developed into what it is now, which is being rooted in an LGBTQ plus IQA plus organization, supporting young LGBTIQA plus people, and the education sector. So yeah, that's it really. Nikki, I don't know if you're still there. I know you were having some internet.
Hello.
Oh, hi, George.
Hello, Tom. Yeah, that's okay. That's absolutely fine. We've been experiencing some connection issues, but that's absolutely fine. We can continue
Yeah.
together, Cameron.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting what you're saying. And my question, while you were talking about this and how you started, is how can someone start? As let's say that someone is interested in starting the conversation and being part of the community. How can they start? How can they do that?
I think it's definitely engaging with the community as much as possible. It's having an open mind. It's really understanding that if you want to be that ally, and Laila has an incredible analogy about it. It's where you place yourself, and I think really much being behind someone and really uplifting those voices is probably the first place where you can start, and really understanding lived experiences of being not only LGBTIQA plus, but being from any marginalized community, but also where they intersect. And that's a very big developing area of intersectionality, where you could be queer, you could be a person of color, you could be queer and neurodivergent or disabled, or you could be queer and a person seeking asylum. There are so many things that we can understand, but we can only understand by not making assumptions, and really as an ally uplifting those voices and listening to them. So that's definitely where you can start, and then really then asking them, how can I show up, how can I be there for you, what can I do? And that's that analogy of standing in front of them. And then once you've got that understanding and that education, it's then being that ally that stands in front of them and calling out or calling in, depending on what the scenario is, inappropriate behavior, discrimination, hate, and doing that, but doing that with the knowledge that the people who are going through it have instilled in you. So yeah, I hope that kind of helps create a little bit of an analogy in terms of what allyship could be for people who want to start off.
I really like what you said about making assumptions, because it's very easy to make an assumption based on what we hear, based on what we see as well. And as educators who try to be allies, I think that it's very important to pause and ask. However, can I please ask you, I think that's the most difficult moment for me when I want to understand the person that I have in front of me, is how can I approach them so that I can ask them and understand, because not everyone is quite open about who they are and themselves. So as an educator myself, I always feel this sort of fear that, oh, can I talk about this? Like their identity with my students or even staff as well. So how can we overcome this fear?
I think it comes from so many different things. One, there's training. You can commission training, and people can come in and create that safe space, and that non-judgmental space. I think we need to understand that we're all on a different journey of understanding everyone's lived experiences. So me as a queer man, I can't expect someone to understand things straight away, and I shouldn't call people out straight away. But we understand that there's no malice with what you're asking, and so if we enter that space knowing that we are going into it with the full understanding that you're going to come out of this with more understanding, and hopefully a better way of interpreting and asking those questions, and understanding is that calling in method without really kind of shining a light. It's kind of saying, I understand because that's the life that you've led. This is why you're asking the question in this way. I think it's trying to go into it with no judgment. So I think it's engaging with people, but really kind of setting the scene to say, I'm not here to offend. I really want to be the best that I can be to help you and uplift you. So I apologize if there's anything that I say, but please correct me. I won't take it personally, but also let me know, and in terms of words where you think I shouldn't be using, or phrases or talking or making assumptions, tell me if these are negative stereotypes that I shouldn't be perpetuating. I think it's if you go into that with that collaborative and co-creative mindset, you're going to come out of it much better. I mean, I've worked in LGBT organizations where we've wanted to close the door and chastise people for how dare they say such awful things about trans people and everything, but then it's just like, well, we need to open the conversation to take people on a journey and understand that people say what they say, not because they necessarily are born with hate, they have learned that hate, and we need to really work together to unlearn that. So yeah, I think that mutual respect for one another is so key.
And can I please ask, like, what kind of signs should we be aware of as educators when it comes to students or staff struggling with their identity or even acceptance? And how can we respond with care? I think that's the starting point, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't want to teach everyone to kind of suck eggs, but there's definitely the usual warning signs. You know, are they showing up to lessons? Is there sudden absenteeism? Is there withdrawal from things that, especially that they like? Are they suddenly withdrawing? Are there, from a safeguarding perspective, are you seeing potential injuries or damaged belongings, or are they talking about not fitting in anymore? Are they vocalizing all of that? Are they also potentially acting out themselves? Are they showing some negative behaviors in the class, and also looking at them as individuals? Are they suffering from multiple types of stress? You know, like for me as a teenager in the UK, you know, I was a queer person, I was practicing Muslim, I just could not reconcile that when I was a teenager, and that would play out in so many different ways. But the main thing is talking about that safer space. How can you, because I know not everywhere you can create that, but try and think about how can I make this as a sanctuary, or as I was talking about, an embassy, where within the four walls of this establishment you are safe with me. I can assure you that. I can't necessarily assure confidentiality because there's some things that might creep into safeguarding, but number one, I will believe everything that you say. I'm going to listen without judgment, and I'm going to validate your experiences, but do it in a way where you're not really singling them out or making it very obvious for other people to know that they're being taken aside. There's just ways in which that you can engage them in a way that then makes them know that you're looking out for them. And where you can, if appropriate, link them in with so many, you know, LGBTQ plus youth charities. I mean, in the UK, there's obviously, we've got information on the Pride in Education website, of course, but there's Just Like Us, which are doing Schools Diversity Week this week. So I urge everyone to have a look at that if you're in the UK. The Proud Trust, Mermaids, support trans and non-binary young people, Blossom LGBT as well. So all of these kind of things, helplines and everything. And I just think it's about being non-judgmental, validating, believing, and having that safe space in the school or whatever establishment that you're in. So yeah.
Can I just ask, I don't know if we got a bit more time, Georgia, are we okay? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Cam, you mentioned the embassy project at the beginning. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, I'd love to. So this is very much about, you know, we can talk about all the things that you can do in terms of visibility and, you know, like talking about, you know, put pride flags and embed it in your curriculum, but that doesn't apply in places where it's illegal, where being LGBT+ is criminalized. But you can show up and support young LGBTQ+ people without calling it out explicitly. The embassy model comes from two people, David Glasgow and Kenji Yoshino, from New York University, and it was very much applied in the corporate sector. And it was just, how can you establish an office in a country and support staff, not only ones that are moving over, but the ones in that country, and support them to be who they want to be, without battling the government and things like that. So the embassy model is an interim model between establishing yourself. So that's called the just when in Rome model, where you come in, you establish yourself. The embassy model is, what can we do inside these four walls to support people? And that's the things where you can think about, well, I can't necessarily explicitly talk about it, but I can maybe talk in code. You can use visual descriptions. You can talk about flora and fauna. You can talk about different animals. You can talk about different different flowers and give analogies there. You can present the rainbow. You can have a rainbow very much visible without saying that it's linked to LGBTQ plus people. But you can also talk about belonging, and belonging is a very, very strong word, because it's about, do you feel like you can be yourself? And I'm not saying that you can be your best LGBTQ plus self. Can you be yourself? And as long as you're talking about these things and you've got an environment that also talks about no hate is allowed. You might not be able to have a whole school anti-homophobia, biphobia, transphobia, anti-bullying policy, but you can have a policy that talks about all forms of hate are not tolerated. And so you can just make sure that within these walls, it is a more welcoming space, and people may come forward and may share things with you, and it's about how us as leaders and as teachers can support that individual. And the embassy model is also about, well, what's going on outside, because it's not like no one is trying to advocate for LGBT rights. There are groups, there are people, there are movements that you can do that, and you can try and link with people. And so for me, like the most important thing with all of this is you do no harm, because there are activists that go over, they're loud and proud, and they show the flag, and then they leave, and then it just causes so many issues for LGBTQ plus people in that country when they do leave. So it's important to be a safe haven, be that sanctuary, but do it in a way that doesn't leave or do any harm to the people there. So that's in a nutshell what the embassy model is, and I'm happy to talk more about it. I mean, people can link with me and Laila El Metwi, and we're more than happy to talk to you more.
Well, yeah, this is what I was going to ask. If there was anyone watching who thinks, actually, this is my context and I'd like to know more. So if they get in touch with you, then you can help them to perhaps get this started.
Laila and myself have done 3 lots of summits. We are working on an ebook. So connect with me on LinkedIn and Laila El Metwi. Follow both of us for that ebook. Follow Pride in Education on LinkedIn as well. And if you've got any more questions about this and anything else, more than happy to kind of meet with anyone. So
Oh, that's brilliant, Cam. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing what you do and just opening up a whole new world to people. I think that's super important. Thank you. Thank you for being with us. Thanks so much.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
And we're back, and I'm here with Jacoby. Jacoby, I was going to say you're muted, but you're not. You're very fast. And what else are you other than fast? For people who don't know you, could you introduce yourself?
Yes. So my name's Jacoby. I'm a queer cisgender male. I work for Creative Listening, and we produce a lot of video content for ELT companies and publishers. So yeah.
In fact, I think the beautiful video we have of our last conference.
Yes.
We owe that to you.
Yeah.
But that's not why you're here. Actually, I think you got on Georgia's radar because you wrote a blog post. And that was such an impressive blog post. She shared it with Nikki and me, and we all said, we want to talk to Jacoby. And I think the title of the post is, Why Does Pride Still Matter?
Yeah.
Why does it?
I just think with the political landscape that we're currently in, where, we've got multi-billionaires fighting against trans rights, and we've got, governments making it harder for people to just simply exist, we need to remember that Pride started as a protest, it stays as a protest, and we have to fight for everyone to be equal and have just basic human rights. It's been mentioned that there are some countries still in the world that it's illegal to even be LGBTQI+, and until everybody's equal and we have that kind of basis of quite basic human rights to just exist and live your true identity, we have to keep fighting in whatever way that is, whether it is as simple as a blog post that can be shared out and hopefully change some opinions, or whether it's just, you know, speaking to someone when you're out and about. Like, it doesn't have to be huge monumental changes. It's small shifts that start to make that difference. And, you know, that's what I would like to be a part of, in doing things like the blog for, you know, creative listening, but also, you know, being here and talking to you and listening to these other wonderful speakers.
As you said, there's countries where it's even illegal to be yourself. And as you said, you're doing this because you want people to be yourself. Now, I'm in the Netherlands, so if we're talking about being able to be yourself, we kind of do quite well on that aspect. What are you saying are like the basics that you wish everybody had around the world?
I think it's quite hard to kind of not specify, but it's just that right to exist, and your existence isn't questioned. Like, and it was what Cam was saying about just being believed. Like, if someone comes out to you and says, I'm trans, I'm gay, I'm whatever it is, just being like, okay, great, that's noted. Like, it doesn't need to be anything more than that. It just having that acceptance is important, and having that right to live your life, go to work, go to school, have education, and live it freely is what I'm talking about. Whereas, you know, people are in countries where they're having to hide and suppress their identity just to, you know, live.
Yeah. Obviously, that needs to change. And we just heard about projects, the embassy project in particular, that focuses on those areas. And I think that's a very difficult question, because those areas, it is very difficult. But I also think a lot of people live in areas where we tend to say, yeah, but you can't you? And yet that's not true. In fact, I read your blog post, and the numbers and all the sources and the stats, they're quite disturbing. And I think at least half of them, if not more, also apply to my context, to the Netherlands. What are we doing wrong, and how do we need to do better?
Oh, it's such a big question. I think that, for us as you know, people working in education, it's just making sure that there's spaces for people to exist safely and to express themselves. You know, with that, we hope that will trickle down into governmental changes and shifts. Like, obviously, that's where the bigger changes need to come from. But creating a safe space where people feel able to express themselves and, you know, build up that confidence to maybe go to a pride march or a protest or whatever it is, to then, you know, start those shifts. Like, you know, when I was at school, I wouldn't have ever dreamed of going to Pride or anything like that, because it would have been too scary. But after meeting more queer people and building up that confidence and that kind of community and feeling safe in doing so, I was able to go to Pride or protests that affect queer people. And, you know, those things, feeling confident and safe, means that you can go out and hopefully shift opinions and, you know, shift governmental policies.
What are practical things that I, as a teacher, could have done for the younger version of you to feel that sooner? Like, what could I have done in my classes? Or
I think it's that question of belief and, like, just accepting what someone's telling you. Like, I remember being told at school, like, oh, you're so quiet, it's such a shame, like, you'd be so much better at school if you, like, participated more. And I wasn't participating because I didn't want, like, you know, my voice or my answers or whatever it was to be seen as gay. Like, I went to an all-boys secondary school just after Section 28 was repealed, so there was still the hangover of that, where people weren't talking about it in the classroom. And, you know, you put your hand up and you'd answer, and someone would be like, oh, well, that's gay. And that immediately shuts you down. And then if you've got a teacher saying, oh, but you're so quiet now, why aren't you answering? Like, it just kind of forces you back down. So being able to have a teacher that listens and, you know, creates that safe space. It's all about safe spaces for me. And, you know, just saying, okay, I understand why you feel that way and you wouldn't want to do it. I'm not going to force you to answer. Just know that I recognize that you know the answers and I see that. Like, it's just, yeah, kind of just being accepting and like an active listener to these people. And yeah.
How do we create those safe spaces? Would it have been better for you if someone had asked you privately? Like, I'll take one of my students aside on the hallway and I'll say, like, hey, what do you need? Or is something up? Or do I turn this into a class debate?
I think for some people, maybe taking them privately would work. I think for me personally, I don't think it would have done. And I think what, you know, thinking about it in coming to this conversation, I was thinking about like what could have been done. And I think a lot of it is those kind of small mentions of queer identity within the wider class. So it's not having a full debate or a lesson about queer existence. It's kind of, you know, if you're talking about engineers and you talk about like Alan Turing, that you bring up his identity and his impact on computing and the war and all of that. Like, those are important things to mention, and his impact on history was huge. I didn't know he was a queer man until way later, and stuff like that. Just having a little recognition of, oh, they had a queer identity. I can relate to that. I can see something similar there. And it doesn't have to be a big fanfare, but just those little moments of kind of that offer recognition for different people, I think makes a big difference. And also not framing it like a lot of the time in like the media, and whether that's TV or novels or whatever it is, like queer stories tend to either have really tragic endings, they're the butt of the joke, or whatever it is. It's starting to, there's definitely a shift now, but focusing on those stories with a positive outlook, I think really make the difference and will really help people feel seen and know that whoever's talking about whatever teacher's talking about it is a safe person to talk to and confide in. And I think, like, you know, I've had pronouns in my email signature for, I can't remember how long, for such a long time now. And the reason I started doing it was so that people, it's just a small thing, but it means that people who receive my email understand that I'm a safe person to, if they wanted to or needed to, reveal their identity. There's no pressure. It's, you know, you don't have to in a corporate sense in that way, but it's just a little symbol of like solidarity and that I'm here and you're safe kind of thing. So it's those little things that really add up to quite a lot, especially for the formative years of children in school.
And so correct me if I'm like paraphrasing this wrong, but you're actually saying it's not necessarily about going big. It's not necessarily about making it a team and bringing in all the flags and in the Netherlands purple jackets and all that. It's also just about when you're talking about World War II, if you're talking about the Enigma machine, bring up Alan Turing, bring up his life. Yeah. In a textbook, make sure that if you're discussing families, you have the option of also a family, core family can also be 2 dads or 2 moms. Exactly. And it's like the small things of doing a sticker or a bracelet or something in your signature email that will say like, hey, people who'll know it know how to spot it, but you don't have to get too much attention to it.
Yeah, there's Oslo Pride put an advert out this year, which is really powerful, that kind of sums that up. It's like queer couples or people going into situations which can, for a lot of us, feel quite scary. Like there's a female couple getting into a taxi. That can be some, you know, for them, that can be quite scary. But the taxi driver's got a progress flag on the dashboard so they can relax. They know that that's a safe space. It's those little things that just make people relax and feel open. They make a huge difference. And that's not to say like the bigger lessons around it aren't important. They also are. But I think if you want to make more change, it's those little things of just kind of embedding small moments of it throughout the wider learning.
Yeah, so you're saying keep doing all the pride parades and all the big brands that are sort of doing the color washing, greenwashing kind of thing, where, you know, Dunkin' Donuts now comes with like big mugs and all that. You're saying keep doing that, but also it's in the small things of knowing it's safe.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, I don't know. Because if I'm out in the street, I'm holding my boyfriend's hand or not, that has nothing to do with safety. That's usually more a practical thing. And it's not something that I realize would be a problem, but I can imagine that.
Yeah, I've been with my partner for almost 8 years, and I don't think we have ever held hands walking down the street because we won't feel safe to do so. So it's you know, that's not a pity party for me. That's just the realities of what it is living a queer existence. And, you know, the UK is, you know, we're very fortunate that it's actually quite progressive and that it is, you know, majoritively quite safe to do, you know, to live and be queer, but it's not 100%. And, you know, that's only going to get worse in different countries or whatever it is. Like, it's, yeah, I think the biggest thing for me just generally is just making sure people feel safe in whatever way that is.
What are other things that you say that sort of play up that, you know, cis cheerleader stupid people like me don't realize? Because it's so normal that you know, but that are still loaded topics.
Yeah, I think
or
it's kind of tied into what we've been talking about, but we constantly think about where we go on holiday. Like, again, it's a privilege that we're able to go on holiday and that we're able to visit different places, but we do have to consider where we're traveling to. And I did a project with someone that was filming in Turkey, and he was asking me like how I felt out there, and I was like, this is fine because I've researched it, I know my thing, but I won't do jobs in these countries. He was like, I've never considered that you wouldn't. And I was like, well, of course, because I would have to, I know it's a work setting, so I'm not going to be out and hugely flamboyant, but it's my existence and it's my identity. I'm not going to suppress it for work to go to somewhere maybe in the Middle East where it is illegal. That's not fair on me. It's not fair on the project. It's not.
Yeah.
So yeah, thinking about where I work, where I visit, like socially, like you think about, you'd be like, oh, someone's recommended this place, and then you look up the LGBT rights in that country, and you're like, no, we're not going. So yeah, it's little things like that. I'm sure there's many more. I can't think of them right now, but yeah, there's loads of little things that as queer people we're always thinking about and have to take into consideration.
With the vacation, or at least the summer, let's be honest, half the educators are actually getting into work for summer schools now. So with the summer coming up, and to end on a positive note, which countries from your research you say, well, those are the good countries to go to? They're inclusive. We can all look at them as an example of how it could be.
I think a lot of Europe is pretty good, and everybody's got different positives and different negatives. I would say, like, nowhere's 100% perfect.
No.
You know, I lived in France for a bit, and I lived in France for a year, and that was actually felt more progressive than living in London. And I was in a much smaller, you know, city and town. So yeah, it's hard to say, and it's down to your own preferences and what you're comfortable putting up with, because some places, like, it's completely legal and you would, you know, be perfectly safe, but general kind of consensus is quite conservative, so you might face some backlash. Some people are very comfortable with that. I personally wouldn't. So, you know, in some parts of Turkey, for example, they're, you know, a little bit more conservative than, say, Istanbul. So it's all relative, and it's down to what your preferences are.
I can relate to that, I guess. I mean, Amsterdam prides itself on having pride and all those things. But I think the stats still show every year that gay couples are being attacked in the wrong side of the city. So yeah, I guess it's.
But yeah, quickly, just because I know you wanted to end on a positive note, I think from experience, like, it's the old adage of like, it gets better, and it definitely does get better. Like from where everything was with queer rights when I left school to where it is now has improved so much, and it will only continue to improve if we keep fighting for it. And there is hope out there for young students going through a potentially tough time at the moment. There is hope, and it will get better.
Oh, true.
Jacobi, I was going to say we would definitely love to see you in Greece. So you and your partner are more than welcome to come and visit us.
Great. Very happy.
But I was going to ask you, because Anka said it very, very well as well. For me, it was very important to listen to your reality, because what we don't really talk about in education is the reality that our staff members and our students experience, because they come from different backgrounds, and we don't really know how they experience their identity and their community, and how they experience acceptance as well. And hearing you talk about something so simple that we take for granted, like holding hands, it was a little bit heartbreaking to listen to you talking about how you choose where you will be working or where you will be going on vacation because of who you are, which shouldn't be the case. So I think, and I would like to thank you for raising awareness on this, because we don't really talk about the reality of what people experience.
No, and thank you for having me for this and this platform and putting it out there and getting different perspectives. I think it's really important to hear, because no one's life experiences are the same. Everybody has a different experience, and I can't speak for anybody else's experiences. I can only speak from what I've lived through and what I would like to see. So having different people present their ideas and their opinions is so important, and because learning from other people is the only way that we can grow.
Yes, absolutely. Jacobi, thank you so much for joining us.
No worries. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Lovely. Thank you. And we will definitely speak soon as well. Thank you.
Yes. Speak soon. Thank you.
Bye-bye. So, Anka, I'm going to remove you from the stage because I'm bringing in another familiar face. So goodbye, Anka. We'll see you soon.
Let's see who you're trading me in for.
And of course, this is John. No, John, you're muted. John, we cannot hear you. You're muted. Sorry.
It's the story of my life. I'm always on mute. George, I really don't actually want to speak because I think the voices we've been listening to are so important and we've all got so much still to learn. And it's fantastic that we're providing this platform, but I think listening is so important in this time.
I was thinking the same, because I can see people in the background. So what the audience do not see is what I see. So my stage. So you and I can see who's in the background waiting. And I could see everyone listening attentively.
And learning.
Exactly. It's so exciting. So exciting. Yeah. And I honestly want to thank all
exciting and at the same time frustrating. And, the challenges that people have to face. I get really frustrated by that as well. So a really great live stream to be involved in. And I really don't want to speak too much, but if you don't mind, and just to let everybody know, it's just a reminder of what we do as IATEFL, as a community for English language teaching professionals. In a more general sense, of course, what we are doing is providing opportunities for learning, for CPD, for exchanging ideas. So I would encourage everybody to go to the IATEFL website, click on the events. They're open to everybody. Doesn't matter if you're a member of IATEFL or not. You can join in, you can register for an event if it's of interest to you. So please go to the IATEFL website and have a look. And just also wanted to share a little bit of exciting news. Georgia, I don't know if you noticed, but we have in the last week launched the conference website. Do you know what? We've got a conference coming up. I seem to say that throughout my life. But of course, we're just getting over our fantastic conference in Edinburgh in April, and we'll be in Brighton next April. So do head over to the IATEFL conference website at iateflconference.org. Now, I will say to you that people can't register yet. It's not open for registration. It will be soon, but there's all the information about the conference. There's also links to places where you can book your accommodation. It's got the dates, and you can also go back to the Edinburgh conference and see again the plenaries, and the poster presentations are there, and lots more information. So please do head over there. That's really all I wanted to say. Really, I didn't want to say that. I just want to listen today.
Brilliant, John. Thank you so much for the update. Now we're going to play a video, but before I play it, can you give us just a heads up about what this video is all about?
Really, it's just to build a little bit of excitement about the conference in Brighton next year. So it's just a very short video to give people a flavour. People think, oh gosh, what is the IATEFL conference like? What might I expect? And this is really just a very short clip to get a feeling for it.
Amazing, John. Thank you so much. Now, the
Pleasure.
only thing I would like to say, because we're celebrating Pride in this show, the IATEFL Brighton proposals are going to open soon.
Soon, that's right. Yes.
Yes. So if you are an ally or if you are a member of the LGBTQI+ community, then what I would suggest is submit your proposal to talk about this very, very important matter. This is how we start the conversation. So we will be more than happy to read your proposals as well.
Yeah, I always say this with the conference when people say, what's the theme of the conference this year? And my answer to that is always, that depends on you. It's your conference. You are the community, the professional community. So it's what you bring to the table. And it's a very big conference. There are over 600 academic sessions over 4 days, but it's so important, and it does share knowledge in so many different aspects of the profession. But yeah, these kinds of areas are so important to raise awareness and to make sure that the profession is learning and moving forward. You're absolutely right, Georgia.
Excellent. Lovely. So, John, we're going to say goodbye because we have got one more interesting guest. So people from home, do not go away. We're going to play a 1-minute video about our Brighton conference next year. But then we have got another interesting guest. So we're really looking forward to speaking to him as well. So let's go.
Oh, I can't wait.
Anka, did you see that video?
Yes. Well, I kind of had to look away for a bit when I was doing this to Nikki, which seemed a bit rude on video. But other than that, great video, and really looking forward to Brighton.
Now, Anka, before I invite our guest, I need to tell you that his students are watching the show. So, having said that,
that's fun. So what should we ask him?
All of the difficult or easy questions. So
if you're a student and you're like watching, do put in the comments. We have the comments open. So whatever you comment under the video, how brilliant your teacher is, for example, we never hear that enough. Do let us know, and we'll get that in the conversation. But I have enough questions of my own also, because we have a good one.
Absolutely. So let's welcome to the stage Albert Beal. Hello, Albert.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you so much for joining us in the show.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
I was very excited when I saw we had you, because well, in a minute I'll ask you to introduce yourself and explain how you got into the topic. But we actually have with us a researcher. And what I said during the last interview, I hope this applies to more people, that I'm not saying everybody's stupid, but if you're not sort of experiencing it every day, we don't know. I don't know that, holding hands, it could be difficult. We had a situation at university where I teach where we had gender neutral toilets. And until one student spoke up and said, but we need bins for female non-gender users of the toilet, they're not inclusive. And it's the kind of stuff that I didn't even think about. Because, I don't know. And you're a researcher studying exactly this. So I'm expecting all the answers from you.
Let's see how much of them I can give you.
And I'm already seeing, by the way, comments saying that you are a great and gorgeous teacher. Can you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Albert Beal. I live in Germany and I do my research in Germany. I do teacher education in Germany, and my PhD focuses on descriptions of queer language teaching practice. So there's a lot of research, a lot of theoretical stuff. This is what you could do, but I'm actually asking the teachers, what are you doing?
And what are we doing?
What are we doing? Well, it's interesting, and it's a mix, I think. And obviously, the people I talk to is the people I talk to, and that doesn't mean the whole language teaching community. But there's different ways of bringing the topic in, and we talked a lot about the small things, the small gestures, the naming it here and there, the bringing it into the classroom by just dropping in the material that features queer participants without focusing on the queerness. We also talked about raising awareness for marginalized experience, talking about how difficult it is to hold hands or how we are scared to hold hands. And that's not a strange experience for me. I come from the east of Germany where things get really conservative currently. So going back home is weird because I do not know how to behave with my partner and how open I want to be holding hands, kissing. So share those experiences, validate them when your students come, but also question how these power structures influence our society, our language teaching materials.
And you're talking about the small gestures also. I love that, but what are small gestures that I can consciously do to make my students feel more at ease?
I think, first of all, be critical of the materials you use. And I think that's one of the lessons I try to teach in each course I teach, but also specifically in the queer language teaching classes. Only because it's printed doesn't mean it's true, or it doesn't mean it's the full reality. So bring in diverse voices, check voices that are potentially harmful. If there are tasks in there that make you uncomfortable or you think that make your students uncomfortable, don't do them. One of the examples I always take when criticizing materials is there's a thought experiment task in one of the published materials here where you're supposed to pick an identity, a queer marginalized identity, And then you are supposed to write down your favorite thing, your favorite friend, your favorite family member, your dream job. And in a thought experiment, all of that is going to be taken away from you due to your identity. And that can be so harmful and re-traumatizing for people who had bad coming out experiences, like fostering the stereotype of coming out is difficult and means you're alienated from like everything you hold dear. So be critical about the tasks that are in your material and edit them, bring in new stuff.
That's a very interesting example, because I didn't know where you were going with that, but it sounds like actually something that, without thinking, Monday morning, stressed out weekend, I think, hey, I'm doing the right thing. This is about queer identities. This is about empathy, and it's good. But you're actually saying, and I can see that, because you're asking people to go for a stereotype, and you're very much emphasizing, if you come out, everything you love will be taken away from you. That is actually really harmful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you don't go with that critical, reflective mind and think about, okay, what is this task actually doing to my students, to myself? Like I usually do it in my teacher training, teacher education programs, but only with like a trigger warning and say, if you don't feel like in the space for this experience today, then it's absolutely fine. And even to having to do that shows how like difficult some of the material might be.
So what are other examples of things I should watch out for?
I think one of the things is representation, and we talked a little bit about that earlier, or the other people did anyways, is like, who is in my material, whose voices are represented? Can I maybe bring in other voices that haven't been heard in my class? And again, focusing not just on like doing it all with like a big blah queer stuff here and there, but just bringing it in as one of lived experiences, as own voices, letting them speak instead speaking about them in a way. And I think one of the things with queerness in language education is, yes, it's a topic, but it's more than a topic. It's about people, it's about communities, and it's about real feelings and real identities. So it's more than just a topic, but also a topic in a way. So changing things up, like in a family tree, add like a queer couple. Talk about safety on the way home, because that's something that queer students can relate to, but not only queer students, also like female experiences, women experience like those things, and not, but it's gender-based, but not just gender-based, it's queerness-based. It can be due to other marginalized experience. So thinking about it intersectionally as well. So it's not just about queerness, but also about like power structures in general.
So basically you're saying be aware of all the problems that other people might face. Though in the case of how do you get home after a night out, that's, as a woman, I can relate to that one. But then don't make it a woman's thing, make it a safety thing. There are people that can relate to this. There's people that can't relate to this, for who it's good to hear. And it doesn't have to be big. I don't have to wave my flag, but I can just talk about safety and how are we feeling, what are our experiences.
And I think one of the things I would also recommend is like we talked about, being approachable, validating students' experience. And I think that's important. And I think I would add to that, be consistent in that. Don't make it a like one-time thing. Be consistent in it, and also make sure, and I think there's one thing Tyson Seaborn once said, and that stuck with me, and it's like, be the teachers that your students can come out to, because you might be the only person that can. So if that's the approach, if that's the attitude you bring to your teaching, I think that can go a really, really long way.
And you said we do that with small things. I think in the last talk, we also discussed the Alan Turing film. It's like, discuss history, but bring in something small to sort of normalize it. What are other materials, films, books that you say these are interesting to use? And everybody watching, if you have a good title, please put it in the chat also. But what are good materials that I should bring into my classes?
Yeah, well, obviously that really depends on the context and how appropriate something feels for the context, how safe you feel with bringing in stuff. But in Germany, we talked about like things being allowed. In Germany, it's even like in the state I live and teach, it's even required for English language teachers. Gender and identity is now a topic for A-level classes. So it's not just like the pet project of queer teachers or teachers with queer students, but it's a general thing for every teacher to do so. So be aware of those rules and make use of them, I think. And if we talk about texts, one of the communities that faces a lot of discrimination, and like even a backwards movement, I feel like, is the trans community. And we haven't talked about that massively today, but I think being an ally, not only as a straight person to the queer community, but also as like a gay, white, sort of privileged man to the trans and non-binary community is important. And there's a lot of talk about it, and some people would bring in the topic of trans identities by discussing, should they be in sports or not? Should they be in military or not? I think that's not what I would do. Don't discuss like human rights and make students argue against it. That I think is not the road I would go. But bring in their voices, their narratives. And there's a book called like Gender Explorers, where trans people and their caretakers, so their family members, talk about the experiences of discovering and exploring and navigating their transness. So bring in those narratives, because they are much more exciting than hearing a like Republican politician talk about a bad trans people. So bring in their voices, give them the stage, and focus on those like own voices.
And I love how you say bring in real people, not just fiction, but bring in like the stories and voices of these people who are going through it now. You already said that in Germany, and that's very progressive. It's like mandatory to discuss this in your classes. I know that even in Europe, we have countries where it's illegal to discuss it. What could I do? Does your research cover that also?
Well, because my research focuses on people who work in Germany, it's very much okay to do so. But one recommendation, I think we talked a little bit about it already, is like, don't make it a sexuality thing, don't make it a gender thing, make it a safety thing, make it a power thing, make it a marginalized thing. And it doesn't need to be super explicit all the time, but it can be.
So talk about minorities without mentioning any of the letters, without mentioning any of the colors, just sort of discuss emotions, discuss the feeling of being different or fitting in or safety or...
Yeah, and there's so much like, even you don't need a queer text to discuss queer perspectives. Like one of the most favorite things I've ever read is an article that does a queer reading of Harry Potter, and I know J.K. Rowling is a big enemy of specifically the trans community. So doing queer stuff with her work feels sort of very activist appropriately in a way. So you don't need queer text to do queer things, I guess. You can just do stuff with it. You know, Harry Potter lives in the cupboard, you know, coming out of the estranged family relationships. There's so many experiences that you could relate to queerness or other forms of marginalization.
Jacob, Albert, can I ask you a question about research? Because there are a lot of people who talk about research in education. And if we specifically look at research and pride, for example, what are some of the topics that people could conduct research for or on? And where could that lead in the future? Like, what kind of results should we be expecting from those research efforts?
Well, maybe a little history overview. Like, queer language education research started as like an activist calling. Cynthia Nelson and others were like, we are here, see us as queer teachers, as queer researchers. But it has moved to a massively vibrant field now. So it's not just here and there, but there's like globally, there are people researching that. And it's different stuff. You can look at material and see how is it represented. Because as we just said, not every representation is great. So we need to also have a critical eye on what kind of representation we want. We can talk about, do teachers want to teach that topic and how do they approach it? What hinders them? What are the challenges? In my research, teachers say, bringing this topic in, I know I prepare myself for 2 or 3 like students who come maybe with like a disrespectful, not really interested, almost provocative, not being interested. How do you navigate this? And I think one of the things you could do is usualize it through curriculum documents, like there have been efforts in Germany and other places as well.
Amazing. Wow. Anka?
Wow. No. Wow.
It's very interesting. Sorry, I'm just saying why I'm a little bit speechless, because this is what we're starting saying. Research, especially, that gets people talking about their experiences, and that's why I've asked you about where these results end? And what do we do with these results?
So if, for example, if we talk about my project, and there are millions of other great projects out there as well that do similar things, is what I do is I describe the narratives that the teachers give me on what happens in their classroom. And teachers reading that, they can take ideas from that. Oh, this person read that text in their class to do this and this with. Oh, that might be an idea. I can use the text, but I maybe approach the text differently to fit it my context better. So if we think about what research is, it's a description of some sort of reality, and then people can take from it. It doesn't need to be the teachers need to do better. In my study, I found all the teachers are not really doing anything great. It's just a like judgment-free description of what they've done to go the way a little bit. And, you know, building on that, more research can be done. Looking at how effective that is, what do queer students need? Is queer teaching just something for queer students? I don't think, because we talk about acceptance, we talk about equality, so we talk about awareness of different experiences. So thinking about those kind of things. I do interviews, so I can only talk about what teachers tell me they are doing. I'm not like watching their lessons to see what they're actually doing or what's going on. So there's loads more that we could explore in research.
Brilliant. Wow. Thank you so much.
I hear more research coming up. Like after this thesis, go for your postdoc, go for some extra grants, but this needs to happen.
There's a lot of work to be done, yeah, for sure.
But I think that we are doing some very, very good work as a community in general, as allies, as members of the community. We are doing some very good job. And we have got comments in the comment section. We have got comments like children's books are really great to approach queer topics without approaching queer topics directly. Mm-hmm. And Cam is saying also an animation too. For example, Mulan, the Disney animation has a lot of symbolism around gender identity, and the songs can be interpreted around gender expression and the pressure of societal expectations as well.
Yeah, using pop culture is always a great idea. You know, whether it's Disney movies or graphic novels or picture books, there's loads out there that you can bring in and make use of.
What's one of your favorite? Oh, sorry, Anka, go for it.
No, that's a good question. Go first, please.
So, what's one of your favorite pop culture elements to add to your research or to your classes?
I think I really enjoy the use of like graphic novels because it's such an interest. I usually work in secondary, so picture books for some students feel a little bit too childish, but then graphic novels go really well. Or Heartstopper is a great resource. Le Nomu. So there are a few like ways of bringing in this, using language, using imagery, and then looking at specific scenes, connecting it with the Netflix series. So there's loads of like connections you can do as well.
Excellent. Lovely. So, Anka, have we got any more questions for Albert?
I was just going to say that when I was looking at the comment section to see the titles that were mentioned, I saw a lot of your students. You should definitely check the comment section class, because teacher appreciation is, I think, not always as visible for us teachers. So you have really great students.
Well, thanks for giving me the opportunity to receive it.
Albert, have you got any final message either for your students or students around the world?
I think one of the questions you sent me in preparation for this was like, what would be one word that you offer people to be seen? And I thought long about this because I think it's not that easy a question, just choosing one word. But I think the word I would choose is enough. You're enough. We are enough. You don't need to do anything to be enough. And not despite of your queerness, but because of it, with it, through it, you are enough. And I think maybe that's something that as a message I usually try to send out in my seminars as well and in my research.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so very much, Albert. Albert, we will definitely be in touch for more. Thank you so much. And we'll speak soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Albert.
Thank you.
All right. So Nikki is having some technical problems. So Anka,
she's waving. I have my phone next to me and she's texting that she's waving at everybody. She's watching, but the internet doesn't allow her to be here and do that live.
Can I just say, our guests were so interesting that the show has lasted 1 hour and 10 minutes almost.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But I've learned so much. And I think our guests were so inspiring. It's like every third or fourth sentence I could like print on a tote bag or on like a kitchen tile or something. It's like it was that good. And I think it's so important that we do this.
Absolutely. And thank you so very much to everyone who has contributed suggestions for this show. I'm just going to give a shout out to Tyson, because he's been communicating with me about the Pride show as well. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you to our guests. So Cam, Jacoby, Albert, oof, I have no words. I'm lost for words, honestly. And thank you very much to everyone who's been here for 1 hour and 10 minutes as well. It's been wonderful to hear all of those voices. And Anka, any final words?
No, well, maybe. Like I had my cup in front of me, and in Dutch, this actually says, "I'm proud of you." And I think especially during Pride Month, it's important to say these things. And I am proud of all our speakers, our guests, people listening, anyone thinking, hey, this is totally my cup of tea, but also everybody who's thinking this is not my cup of tea, but I do want to make sure I have a safe space for my students. Anyone who's consciously thinking about this, I'm proud of you.
I'll give my final words will be the following. So I'll give a little bit of a backstage sort of sneak peek into what we're doing while the audience is watching. So we have got the private chat section on the show.
Yes.
And what I will say is that this is the private chat where our guests and the moderators and myself can write comments. And if anyone needs anything, we write it there. So the audience does not see this. So this is the first time I will mention just what's happening in the private chat. In the private chat, all of the guests and the moderators, we are sharing ideas, thank yous, interesting, inspiring. And this is the kind of community that our LGBTQI+ community is all about. It is about support. It's about offering a safe space as well. And I will say what Albert has just written in our private chat. Pride is community, and this was very community-based. So thank you very, very, very much, everybody. And we will see you soon. Anka and Nikki, thank you so much. Goodbye, everyone. See you soon.